CultPop!
What is up to all our sidekicks and henchmen out there in the Geek Nation? My name is Noel, and today we're going to do something a little different. Now, it's been a while since I've contributed a Thunder Round because, I can't say it as you could see because you can't see the rest of the room, but I am in a sea of boxes and disheveled shelves and books everywhere because I'm in the process of moving. So I'm uprooting, packing all these very heavy books, which is a pain in the butt, and gonna build a new office / setup in the new place, and it's a process of a couple of weeks. So I haven't been able to do as many videos as I'd like, and the ones that we're doing are a little ad hoc. So I'm gonna do some Thunder Rounds, but they're gonna be a little different because none of the books came out this week. I'm going to talk about Bad Idea Comics from Bad Idea Corporation. I don't know if everyone's heard of these, so I'll do a little rundown of what Bad Idea Comics is, what their business model is, and then talk about the two titles that they've had released thus far. And we'll do quick Thunder Round reviews of those comics. But they're not readily available at all stores or digitally, so a lot of people either don't know that these books are out and or don't have access to these books. So I'll share my opinions about that too. But before I do that, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you know when we go live and post new content, which includes every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we live stream our CultPop Podcast, where we talk about this week's comics, we do reviews, pop culture stuff, just hang out and talk about all things that we're passionate about. So join us, join in the comments, and join the conversation. That's Sunday mornings, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what is Bad Idea Comics? Bad Idea Comics is a new company from the former owners or runners or people behind Valiant Comics. A couple years ago, Valiant was acquired by a Chinese investor, DMG, I believe it is, and they took control of the company, and all of the former CEOs, titles that are important, people decided to create a new, curated, prestigious / exclusive comic book line called Bad Idea Comics. The name itself comes from probably the idea that in the industry, this business model is a bad idea. That's just me guessing. So let's talk about what that model is. So I'll have to read some of this to make sure that I get it right. Bad Idea Comics are comic books sold exclusively in participating comic book stores. No digital releases, no trade paperbacks or hardcovers, no variant covers, which isn't explicitly true, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Just super high quality comics that will always leave you wanting more because we'll never publish more than 2 in a given month. Every comic will be crisply designed prestige format packaging with deluxe matte laminate covers and a heavy-duty interior paper stock, but we'll also be splurging on some enormously extra long page counts, guest appearances by some of your favorite artists, and even standalone stories in every issue we publish at no extra cost. Always $3.99 per issue. Also not explicitly true, but all right. If interested, you have to visit a Bad Idea destination store. It's unclear how many there are right now, but as of November of last year, when the solicitations for their first handful of books came out, as of last year, November, there were 150 stores in 200 locations over 3 continents. So that's 200 stores worldwide. And the first two titles, the first 2 comics in their line came out March and April. So March was ENIAC, it's ENIAC, ENIAC, written by Matt Kindt with art by Doug Braithwaite. And just last week was Tankers #1, written by Robert Venditti with art by Juan Jose Reap. There have been 2 issues of ENIAC and 1 issue of Tankers. Both of them, I believe, are 4 or 5 issue miniseries. One of the edicts of Bad Idea Comics is that they will only have 1 to 2 books a month. So it's a number of like one-shots or one and dones, smaller miniseries, and then just kind of slowly piece them out. So how did I get these? How did I acquire Bad Idea Comics? Because I do not live anywhere near a designated Bad Idea destination store. I also don't know how a retailer can become a designated Bad Idea retail store. No idea. No clue. Because of this venue or this format that we talk about on the podcast, I'm always really interested in reading stuff that is off the beaten path or not in my purview because I love comics. I searched online. I went on the Bad Idea website. There's a list of all the stores available. Then you have to contact some of those stores, find out if they do mail outs. You got to find out if they're willing to pull for you, and then when they come out, they'll contact you or you contact them, and then pay for shipping. And it's a whole thing. Luckily, most stores do mail outs because they're wonderful retailers, local comic shops all day long. But it was a little bit of a Herculean effort, which is my first issue with this sales model. I get that they want to cater explicitly to fans of comics. Not a cheap product that's just, playing with IP and nothing original and just a sequel and just a video game and it's only for Hollywood kind of stuff. That sentiment in comic books is incredibly pervasive. It's only for a movie, so why bother? So the idea of just doing something like a comics for comics, expressing in the format is great. I'm a huge fan of that. I think that's awesome. But I fear or wonder if doing that in this way, making it very like a closed garden in such a way to where it's even hard for a fan like me to get these books, doesn't that just create exclusivity? And it's just like a little bubble now, as opposed to reaching out. It's more like hoarding, right? Am I crazy in that? Tell me what you think in the comments, because it was hard for me to get these books. I had to contact multiple stores and which ones responded to me and et cetera, et cetera. And then also too, like, comic books they're like soap operas in that a week later, it's no longer a part of the conversation. They are continuously ongoing stories on a bi-weekly or weekly basis, and a roaming plot. So if you're not a part of the conversation in that first week or two, people don't really talk about it. So having all of these gates in place in front of me, just being able to read and review a comic or a book or a story in real time while it's coming out, it became a little difficult. I love the idea. I love the effort. I love the investment. Not a huge fan of the sales model. The intent is to fight speculation and monetization and forced monetization of a hobby that we love, but the result is just to increase speculation and sales or like aftermarket sales and stuff. Because if you look on like eBay and stuff, people that are trying to get a hold of these books without going through a direct retailer at a Bad Idea destination store, they're through the roof. That's the other thing too. They mention in their early announcement, they mention no variant covers and a $3.99 price point, because they don't believe in variants. We'll only ever have first print and not first print, and they will have different covers, which is a different cover. So the first print usually always has or at least for ENIAC, the first title will have a white title treatment, whereas all other prints will just have a black one, and you'll never know whether it's second or 12th print of the comic, because it just will always look the same, which is fine. But all that did was also increase the speculation of these books, the aftermarket, which doesn't support comic shops. And you could say, like, yay, that's not true, because comic shops can just sell the books for market value, right? No, because if you're a Bad Idea destination store and you're caught or seen selling the comics at anything above cover price, you're, I guess, like publicly shamed and taken, and your status of being able to sell their comics is taken away. So they make it punitive for LCSs to sell their books if they want to be a part of the aftermarket that is inorganically created by limiting the stock in the places you could sell them. It's weird. It's just weird, right? Let's talk about the books. So the first one we're going to talk about today is ENIAC. I have here ENIAC number 1, which came out in March, as well as ENIAC number 2, which just came out last week. It's very difficult for me to know exactly without looking it up because I get these mailed to me after the fact by a wonderful retailer in Pittsburgh, which was the closest Bad Idea store that I could find. I'm currently in the Philadelphia area. Let's do a thunder round. Let's do a quick thunder round for ENIAC number 1 and number 2. I'll try and keep it to a minute. We'll see what happens. So let's get the timer ready and go. Written by Matt Kindt with art by Doug Braithwaite, ENIAC is the story of a decades-old AI system that decides to go rogue, and these two amazing assassins have to go off the grid to essentially assassinate an AI, assassinate ENIAC, and it's their clandestine adventures in real time, interspersed with 20, 30 years ago backplot being filled in about the history of ENIAC. It's a solid read. It's the art's great. The pacing is good. It is a solid read. It's a fun espionage sci-fi kind of thriller. It's just fine. It's pretty good. It's solid. I would recommend it if you're at a store and you see it. It's slick. And that's pretty much all I have to say. It's not. There's nothing absolutely positively new about. Timer. Okay. Yeah, it's just solid. It's difficult reviewing these books because the effort to acquire them weighs on my level of enjoyment. I recommend picking this up. It's a solid read, but it's hard for me to recommend it because the other part of that conversation is I recommend picking this up. It's a solid read. All you have to do is find your local Bad Idea store, call them, see if they can get you some of these issues, and then if you're not going to drive the 2 hours or 1 hour or 3 hours or whatever to go pick it up when it comes out, see if they'll send it to you and then pay the extra for shipping to do that. And there's no guarantee which printing you'll get, but that's fine because it shouldn't matter. Yeah, it's because I can't even say, hey, pick up the trade when it comes out. It'll be great. It'll be great collected, because according to their business model, it will never be collected and it will never be available digitally. I guess these books will just be in print in perpetuity as they get purchased or ordered, I guess. Unless there's a level of it that's not been revealed yet. We'll see. The ENIAC 1 and 2, solid spy thriller reads with a nice kind of practical sheen of science fiction. It's a solid book. The next book we're going to review is Tankers, number 1, written by Robert Venditti with art by Juan Jose Reap. Let's get the clock ready. And here we go. This book is silly. It's wildly silly. It's kind of fun. So an oil company realizes that there's only about 50 years more or less worth of crude oil left. So instead of investing in renewable energy, they decide to invest in time travel, where they can go back in time to divert the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs by about 50 million years. Just divert it, don't destroy it. So that means 50 million more years worth of dinosaur remains can create X amount more crude oil, and then they come back in the present and they own twice as much oil and the reserve isn't being depleted. It's so stupid, it's awesome, because yes, a corporation instead of change would satirically create something far more complicated to maintain status quo. So that's the joke. It's very funny. Oh, I went way over time on that one, but it's okay. The art's fun. This is the story of the jarhead travelers in their big old mech suits going to the past to make this happen. And obviously, when it comes to time travel stories like this, they complete their mission, they come back into the present, and things aren't exactly how they seem. The art's fun. Juan Jose Reap has a very kind of detailed, very sometimes grotesque style of art, in almost like a Frank Quietly kind of way, but not exactly Frank Quietly. So the gore is gore. If you're offended by giant mechs plowing down dinosaurs graphically, this might not be for you. There are no good guys in this book. They're all assholes, and that's kind of part of the satire. It's part of the fun. I enjoyed the originality of this a little bit more than I enjoyed ENIAC. ENIAC is like a solid spy thriller that we've kind of seen before in different permutations. This is Tankers is much more off the wall. Again, I would recommend it, but the lengths at which you go to get the book, it's up to you if it's worth it. Either way, both of these stories were solid for what they are. I very much wish that either in the near future or presently that they were a little bit easier to obtain. So those are my thoughts. That's my thoughts on the first two Bad Idea comics. There are a bunch more coming down the line. Great creators attached to. Zeb Wells is doing a book for them. David LaFuente is doing the art on one book for them. Like these are wonderful creators of stuff that I've enjoyed in the past. And I have a pull list for Bad Idea books for a shop far away, and I've had to make many phone calls to make that happen. So I'm going to get to read them a couple weeks or months later. But these are great. These are good to great books, and it's just a shame that as of right now they're a little difficult to get a hold of. Whether it makes them a liar or not later on, I really, really do hope that these are made more widely available, be it in prestige formats or collected editions or something, because they're going through all this effort to manufacture exclusivity, almost like a clothing drop or something, which is in the short term is great, gets buzz, it's awesome, but in the long term, it doesn't really help socialize the community, the comic book reading community that you are saying that you're catering to. At least that's my opinion. Tell me what you guys think. What do you think of Bad Idea comics? Have you had a chance to read them? What's your thoughts on them? Does, like me, obviously the sales model affected my enjoyment of them in some passive ways or biased ways, but they were still solid books. Did you have the same issue? Tell me if you're interested. Jump in the comments down below. Let me know. Thanks for spending the last couple of minutes with me. Longer than a couple of minutes because whatever. But either, thanks for spending the time with me. Sorry about the mess. In the near future, I will hopefully have a nice new setup and it's going to be rad. But in the meantime, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Join us on Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we live stream the CultPop Podcast, talk about this week's comics, reviews, pop culture happenings, make fun of each other. It's great. It's a good time. But yeah, that's all I got for today. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Bye. CultPop!